to the Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, online viewers, radio listeners via St. Martin Gov Radio, 107.9 FM, and respective radio stations island-wide. I'm Rolika Roach, and welcome to the Live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, October 20th, 2021. At this time, I would like to invite the Minister of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, the Honorable Omar Otley, to address you. Minister Otley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rolika. Good day to the Honorable Member of Parliament, Honorable Prime Minister. I think I'm in Parliament. Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Minister of Justice, the members of the media, and the viewing and listening public. I'd like to start today with some COVID-19 stats. As of today, we have 4,456 confirmed cases. From the start of COVID in St. Martin, we are averaging 6 to 9 cases per day. Unfortunately, we currently have 2 patients admitted in the hospital. Since the start of COVID-19, unfortunately, we have had 74 deaths. To date, 26,209 persons have received their first dose of vaccination, in which 24,173 persons are fully vaccinated on St. Martin. COVID-19 vaccination clinics are open from 8:30 to 3:30, Monday through Friday. However, October 22nd, it will be open from 8:30 to noon. October 22nd, at CPS, your vaccination will be available only between 8:30 and noon. I would like to thank all those that have registered for the Community Day, in which persons in the community can email to share their grievances, ideas, and solutions with me, the Minister of VSR. We are fully booked for this Friday, and for anyone interested, you can email togetherwecan@gmail.com. I'm happy to announce that there will be another community pop-up this Saturday, October 23rd, where we will offer free clinical breast exams. So I encourage all the women to come out, get checked, know your status, and also I encourage everyone to come out and get vaccinated. This will be at the St. Martin Medical Center this Saturday, October 23rd. On other news, we have decided, this is something that the ministry and myself have been looking into for many months. We have been in discussions with the CoM, and the CoM is in approval. We will, as of November 1st, fully vaccinated persons with the vaccination approved by the WHO organizations can travel to St. Martin without being required to test. So as of November 1st, fully vaccinated persons with the vaccines approved by the WHO organizations can travel to St. Martin without being required to test. We have did a lot of research, and yes, many will say we see that vaccinated persons do contract the virus, but however, research shows that the viral load in your nasal cavity decrease much faster as a vaccinated person than unvaxxed, therefore making it harder for the virus to spread or mutate. Just a quick synopsis, the vaccination goes into your bloodstream. Once the virus reaches your bloodstream, this is what causes the underlying conditions as heart disease, kidney disease, lung failure, whatever. The virus starts in your nasal cavity and over time moves to your bloodstream. By having the vaccination in your bloodstream, it protects you from serious illnesses. So that's why we may see positive, but it's a difference between positive and disease infectious. So therefore, based on those results, we have stated that we think it's time to open to St. Martin. We have, unfortunately, a death rate of 1.6%, in which 0.04% of those deaths are vaccinated. Based on the rate of infections, 0.04% of the deaths are fully vaccinated. I look forward to any questions.
Thank you, Minister Otley, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Minister of Justice, the Honorable Anna Richardson, to address you. Minister Richardson, you have the floor.
Good morning, Prime Minister, Minister Vyasa Utley, members of the press, Ms. Roach, CoM, and the listening and viewing public. The matter of reckless riders continues to be an ongoing subject matter. Just days after taking office in 2020, I gave a directive to KPSM to crack down on illegal and reckless riding. The St. Martin Police Force has been addressing this matter, and their efforts has resulted in a number of successful confiscations and motorbikes and scooters that were utilizing the public roads without having the proper and necessary documents, such as driver's license, insurance, proof of ownership, and so forth. The problem, however, remains, and with the most recent incident, I informed the public that yesterday I escalated the call for prioritizing the control on motorcycles and scooters to the Attorney General as an approach to ensure going forward there will be a consistency and enforcement of the law. Based on certain statements made that has come to my attention, it is apparent to me as Minister of Justice that it is important for the judicial process to be explained so it is made clear that the justice or how the justice structure is executed. The Minister of Justice does not pass the buck, but rather is the authority that gives the directives for action. On St. Martin, the public prosecutor is represented by on St. Martin, the public prosecutor represents the Attorney General or the PK, whose main office is established in Curacao. As such, when the minister communicates directly with the PK, he in turn ensures that the chief prosecutor executes accordingly. The prosecutor is the sole authority responsible for prosecuting persons suspected of committing crimes. Only the prosecutor can decide if a person will be brought before the criminal courts, and if so, for which crime. The prosecutor is in command of the police investigation. Based on, for example, the assessment of evidence gathered by the police investigation, the prosecutor decides whether or not to prosecute an individual. Basically, the task of the prosecutor can be divided in 3 subtasks: leading the investigation of a criminal offense, the prosecution of criminal offenses, and supervision of the execution of the criminal sentences. The police is tasked with carrying out criminal investigations supervised by the prosecutor, but also has broader tasks like supervisory monitoring tasks, aid work, and maintaining public order and road safety. As it pertains to the operational aspects of controls on bikes, the pursuit of motorcycles and scooters is also a dangerous undertaking that should be avoided as much as possible, so as to not endanger the rider and those in the vicinity. Oftentimes, these pursuits can end up in serious accidents. When a driver is stopped, a check is made of their personal documents, such as a driver's license, as well as documents for the bike. If any irregularities are found, a fine is issued for the offense. If no documents, including insurance policy, can be shown, or the bike does not have a valid license plate, the bike can and most likely will be confiscated. The owner of the confiscated bike receives a fine and is given a period of time to visit the station to be able to provide documents that supports their ownership and all that is necessary for the bike to be returned. The prosecutor determines what happens if a bike is seized. Based on the relaxed approach and the lack of action in recent times, this has been contributed by the full capacity that is currently in place where the scooters and bikes that were confiscated is housed. Nevertheless, it is realized that the joint authorities between the Dutch and the French side, the prosecutor's office, the police department, it is important to escalate the level of approach to the reckless riding on St. Martin. The objective here is not to interrupt those who use a motorbike or scooter as their mode of transportation. The call is for you to ensure that you are adhering to the same rules all other motorists must. You should have a driver's license. You should have insurance. You should wear a helmet. But you should also ride with caution. And you should also be respecting the laws, the traffic laws. because all other motorists must do the same. It is important to note that the Minister of Justice, as Minister of Justice, I am politically responsible for the prosecutor and at least for part of the criminal investigation of the police. The minister can be held accountable for the functioning of the prosecutor and or police. For these reasons, no political responsibility exists without competence. The minister has the authority to order general instructions to the Attorney General or the Chief of Police, for example, about prioritizing prosecution. We must tackle this problem jointly, as I said earlier, with our French counterparts, because we share borders. And this situation is not just affecting the Dutch side of St. Martin, but the French also. So again, the minister is not passing the buck anywhere. What the minister is doing is what's necessary. Gathering the relevant authorities to come together and realize the safety of St. Martin is at risk. The safety of our commuters is at risk. And as such, it is simply a matter of ensuring that all persons who are utilizing the public streets is doing so safely and has all the necessary documents to do so. I remain for any questions the media may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Richardson, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, the Honorable Silveira Jacobs, to address you. Prime Minister Jacobs, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rolaika. Good morning, colleague ministers. Good morning to the members of the media, to yourself, of course, Rolaika, and to those hardworking members of the Department of Communications, always present, always willing, and to the general public of St. Martin, a very good and blessed welcome to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for joining us. I must state that at least two of our other ministers are in Parliament at the moment, while another is away. And we had already agreed that we would take turns coming here to be able to afford the ability for more questions to be asked as well. Looking forward to, of course, questions that are geared towards bringing the much needed information to the general public as to our policies, programs, etc. Last Sunday, I was a guest of honor, I must say, and it was an honor for me to speak at the 170th anniversary of the Methodist Chapel, the historical building in town, which was built 170 years ago, yesterday, the 19th of October. Though Methodism has existed on the island longer than that and moved from smaller gatherings, including at the brick building, to where the English Anglican Church, I believe, was established and was blown away, or let's say flooded away. Around that time, it was decided to put the Methodist Chapel there. I must commend the Methodist Church for its involvement in the development of morals and values among many within our community, and I wish them, of course, many, many more years of that service to the community. Not only in preaching the gospel, but in also supporting the community, not just their members. Thank you for your service and congratulations. We also commemorated the opening or the start of the airport project, the long-awaited airport project, and I think that is a milestone for the entire island. And I want to again thank all my ministers, Council of Ministers, for being in attendance to launch this project. It shows government's commitment to continued economic growth, and as that is one of our major platforms for economic development, we are happy to see it start and look forward to its completion in 2023. Also, in keeping with government's strategic objectives to move towards more sustainable energy development, I was updated by Grid Market, which I have explained here before, given a presentation on the roll out of the first phase of the approach by Grid of the Grid Market project. It is in collaboration with certain representation within the community, including government departments within TIAT, VROMI, Finance, and of course our electricity company, GEBE. So we are currently, or the project is currently busy collecting data and getting a lot of good information from government's GIS system to be able to put forth proposals of options for more sustainable energy on St. Martin. And so several large areas have already been identified, and the recommendation is to reduce the risk of having energy produced at one location, such as we now have at K-Bay, and the vulnerabilities with that, especially from the sea, to spread out the production of a more sustainable energy throughout the island. So I look forward to the rollout of that, let's call it roadmap, which will be presented to the stakeholders, and it is being rolled out in conjunction with the stakeholders. And I'm promised that by March next year, we would be able to say this is what is possible for St. Martin, and then we would have to make the necessary decisions. I am today also in attendance at a Central Committee meeting of Parliament, a continuation on the financial status of Winair. The answers have been provided and are being finalized for that meeting, which takes place at 11 a.m. I must say, as Government of St. Martin, it did my heart proud to see the hard work that we have been putting in ensuring to build bridges within the kingdom, and especially within the Netherlands, especially with parties in the second chamber with a voice to be able to carry the St. Martin's platform. It was with great pleasure that I could see representation in the form of our own Jorien Ruijten of the D66 party, as well as Sylvana Simmons, the leader of the Bijeen party, and others really speak out strongly about St. Martin's concerns. These concerns were raised when I visited in May and June, and I can see that our representation, the Cabinet of the Minister Plenipotentiary and its staff, is really working to keep that information flowing from St. Martin through their office to the representation to ensure that our concerns are brought forth. It is great to see that both the D66 and Bijeen party has, let's say, carried the cry that the monies that have been allotted to St. Martin, Curacao, and Aruba for humanitarian support for those persons who need food, the food aid program that has been much discussed, should be retained. Any funds that have not been used thus far should be retained by these islands so that as governments, though we've taken over the programs, we are able to financially sustain them as are needed. So I know the Minister of VSR has had discussions with the State Secretary, and it seems as if the intention is to stop that capacity. So I'm happy to see that we are able to get support in the Netherlands, a voice for the serious concerns we have with our position. We are also happy that they were able to put forth a motion to keep the financing, the food assistance, housing, and medical care also through 2022. Whilst, of course, it appears the Dutch government would prefer that we lump all this into liquidity support, which then rolls over if it goes according to the way it has gone thus far, as loans, which really burden the country. And if we look at the IMF reports, we would understand a little more about that. Of course, any questions towards the whole financing, I would leave for the Minister of Finance to answer, but it is in our best interest as a country of St. Martin to execute the motion and have collaboration within the kingdom to really reduce the loans that we have taken as a result of pandemic, as a result of the hurricanes, so that we are able to then move forward as a country stronger in our shoes to execute not only the reforms that have been put forth and are being supported with liquidity and or other means throughout the years, but also to be able to do the necessary investments that we have to make. And by having a wider ceiling or higher ceiling of debt, that diminishes our capacity as a country to be able to do more in the future. So we're hoping for more agreement, more understanding as we continue to build those bridges in the Netherlands so that it is not on, let's say, it goes ignored when it's only the politicians on our side making those statements. And I'm hoping that the people of St. Martin are also cognizant, and we will continue to have informative sessions to inform us to the realities of our situation as a constituent state within the kingdom within these perilous times. Many Caribbean countries are facing difficult times, but as either independent countries or having other types of statuses, they are able to access funding on the international market without having to go through another entity. So we are also working towards being able to stand on our own, and in that, with that goal in mind, we continue to take all the necessary steps. I would like to join the Minister of Justice. As a government, we are, have been, it is not because of the most recent incident. Sometimes it's a question as to when to bring up something. Recently, there was another death in the same area, and it was someone pretty close to my family. So in speaking out at that time, I really was cognizant of persons taking it personal. But at the end of the day, bike life on St. Martin is a reality. We do not have the facilities for it. We saw the interest when the last events were held, and they have to be organized in a safe manner. If the public was to know all of the steps that had to be taken to be able to put on such an event, they would understand why, as a government with the responsibility for safety and security, that this type of behavior in the streets concerns us. Not only because of the dangers to the rider, as Minister mentioned, but also to all others involved. I myself have been in traffic, and my heart in my throat by the way in which bikers are passing me. My brother is a biker. I have a driving desire myself, and as you know, on a bike of another sort had put me on the ground as well. So there's always the opportunity for accidents, and that's a risk bikers take. However, with our narrow roads, with all the speed bumps, with the concrete divisions on the causeway, it is very, very dangerous. And it is also scary as a human to be caught in the middle of it. So it is imperative that we all get together, community leaders, government, and leaders of bikers associations and the like, that we come together to find solutions to bring more awareness as to the dangers. I don't think we have stood still by the amount of injured persons that have survived bike accidents and are now in wheelchair. And I have seen them with family members at the St. Martin home. They spend months, years, and sometimes the rest of their lives in rehabilitation at the St. Martin home as young people. It is a serious, serious challenge. We understand the love, we understand the drive, but we must do it in a safe manner. So I'm calling on all leaders of bikers associations. I'm calling on groups who have a spokesperson who is considered a leader within the groups to let us know how we can get in contact with you. We do have the contacts for the organizations, but I know many are not organized as such. And I believe it's something that we also need to collaborate with as French and Dutch St. Martin, as we have open borders and the groups do ride together. Please be aware that the life you save or the life you preserve may be your very own, but in that you are having a good time is bringing danger to others should also be something that we are aware of as individuals, as humans, and that action is reaction, yes, but when we act in anger, we act in haste, it can always have negative consequences. So I'm asking for peace, I'm asking for understanding, and I'm asking for us to work together as community, as individuals, as organizations to resolve this serious challenge that we are facing, because it is becoming really, really unbearable, and it is not about pointing fingers, it is about coming to solutions. And of course, as a Minister of Justice, the justice chain will have to do what it has to do. And so make sure you have a licensed bike. Make sure you're wearing your helmet. Make sure you are not doing dangerous stunts in the streets and bringing yourself and others into danger as we look towards how we can do this in a more safe manner. I thank each and every one, and I look forward to the discussions on that. I'm glad to see that our vaccination rate, that our infection rate has gone down to a point where we are moving towards more normalcy. Unfortunately, as we are seeing, it is still the unvaccinated that are, for the most part, dying or having serious physical, medical challenges even after recovering from COVID-19. And I don't think enough is being said about that. But in any case, those who feel it know it, those who have family members still suffering, who are now on dialysis, who now have heart challenges or whatever the case may be, still experiencing severe headaches and vertigo and unable to function, pain behind the eyes, please be safe. For your own safety, get vaccinated. But if not, please uphold the protocols for your own safety, because you are the ones, for the most part, passing away. And with each person that passes, a family, a community is hurting. Each life is valuable. Let's take care of each other, St. Martin. Let's do it for all of us. Thank you, and I look forward to any follow-up questions from the media. Oh, I had an answer for Mr. Contav. Sorry. There was a question asked a couple of weeks ago, October 6th, I believe, whether the electoral, you got the answers already? Whether the electoral council had been nominated or appointed or sworn in. The incoming board members have been nominated according to Article 5, subsection 2 of the Register and Financing of Political Parties Ordinance. It is required that the members are proposed by the nominations committee. This was done on March 9, 2021. The status of the board is that the advice and draft national decrees to appoint a chair, member, and substitute member, and the formalization of the resignation of the former members were received and approved on August 28, 2021. The national decrees were then forwarded or will be forwarded to the Cabinet of His Excellency for signing. So it will be finalized, this process will be finalized within short, and notification will be given once the appointments are finalized.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. If you've just joined us, you are watching the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, October 20th, 2021. Thank you for joining us. We now move on to the question and answer session. However, I would like to remind members of the media, for press briefing protocols, that is one question per media person per round. Bibi Haj Shah of SMN News, you have the floor.
Good morning, Relaika. Thank you. Good morning, ministers and colleagues. Minister of Justice, Ms. Richardson, just this week, there was a drug bust, a gun bust in Atlanta, where a person is arrested. There's an investigation ongoing. Can you tell us if there's anything done since then or before then to enhance safety and security at our ports of entry, especially when it comes to illegal items such as firearms, etc.?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Bibi, for the question. So you might remember that we currently have, and this has been going on for quite a number of years now, water protection enhancement. Mr. Dennis Richardson is currently heading a specific development between our interministerial, interagency working relationship in strengthening our borders. And of course, these types of matters are definitely at the forefront as to why border protection is necessary. Oftentimes it seems as though when persons hear about border protection, they think on the control on persons. It's not just the control on persons, but for example, the task and responsibility of our customs department has a lot to do with merchandise that comes into the island. And as the publication would have spoken yesterday, video footage, etc., of the news delivering aspects of how the weapons were packaged, there's a lot of clever activity, and this is the responsibility of our authorities to ensure that they think of everything and they scan properly. I have already seen communication within our customs department about how they're going to be adjusting themselves and being more intense with the crafts that are coming in. Oftentimes, it was, I think, assured that, you know, coming out of the north, their type of screening process is very stringent, so it was a little relaxed there. But I think confirmation has also come to us that it should be across the board. Doesn't matter where the airline is coming from, all inspections should be at the same level, the same. And I think, too, that oftentimes persons, depending on where they're coming from, feel like they should be exempt for whatever circumstance. But in the society that we live in right now, we have to take an approach where all persons have to be dealt with on the same level. So I'm happy that our border protection team meets every Friday, and they are developing a plan of approach to be able to intensify border protection for St. Martin. That includes people, places, and things. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Richardson, and thank you, Bibi, for the question. I would now like to invite Ralph Cantav of St. Phillipsburg Broadcasting. You have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Roche, and good morning to everyone. My question is a bit of a follow-up to Ms. Shaw's question, as well as a question I asked a few months ago on the ministry's plan to particularly address gun violence, because off of a rough count, in recent months, we've had at least 12 reported gun-related crimes on St. Martin. So my question basically is how do we plan to address removing illegal guns on the island, as well as is the ministry working with the Friend side to address the situation?
Thank you, Mr. Kantav. So, you know, oftentimes the level of questions that we get, I know you would want to have a very direct and specific answer. But if we did that, then we will be divulging too much. And we will be making those who are a little too wise, so to speak, right? But I can guarantee you that definitely the fact of our gun rate, illegal guns on the island, is a high priority item. What I am looking for is for the opportunity that we have laws that support a proactive approach. And you know, in this capacity, what I've learned a lot of too is that we assume that things are in place. We assume that our laws allow us to do certain things. But the actuality is that it is necessary for, in some cases, either for us to tweak a law or for an actual law to be developed, to be able to give our authorities such as CAPSM, even the prosecutor's office, etc., the opportunity to be able to do things in the upfront. Nevertheless, we do have a Driehoek meeting upcoming, and the Driehoek consists of my person as Minister of Justice, the Chief of Police, and the prosecutor. And in this case, it will be accompanied by the PK himself. These are particular items we will be discussing because it is important for us to be able to see what is happening in our community and how we need to tackle it. But these sort of exercise are, you know, you must be meticulous in the way you do it, and you have to be in some levels constrained in terms of what you divulge. Yeah. So I know I haven't particularly given you a plan of action on it, but the reason for that is because we cannot be too forthcoming with those sorts of details. Of course. The Chief of Police on the Dutch side already has a working relationship with his counterpart on the Friend side. As I mentioned earlier this week, he did meet with his counterpart for a discussion to be held as to what is the plan of approach in dealing with reckless riding. But it's not just reckless riding. Of course, in the same breadth of discussion, there are other illegal activities that happen, and they work jointly, right? Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Minister Richardson, and thank you, Ralph, for the question. I would now like to invite Lyndon Brown of BCN TV. You have the floor.
Good morning to the people of St. Martin and the ministers that are present here today. Okay, upon hearing, I must say my little sympathy to the Prime Minister. Sorry that she hurt herself. But the question is really going to the Minister of Justice. Yeah. So, Minister of Justice, did you take a holistic view of the activities that are taking place at the prison? Has the schooling continue at the prison? There was a shakedown at the prison, Minister. Did you address the matter?
Well, I don't know from what aspect you're asking me if I addressed the matter.
There was a search, and law enforcement officers find a lot of contraband, weapon, a lot of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah?
Well, there's nothing really for me to address there in terms of the authorities doing what is necessary to keep the prison safe. When the prison authorities receives indication that can be life-threatening, they have a role and responsibility to take action in ensuring the necessary executions of raids to remove whatever is dangerous within the cells, etc. That is their job. That is their responsibility. And I appreciate the fact that, even if it's the slightest indication that something isn't right, it is acted upon because prevention is better than cure. So there's nothing for me to act on in terms of the raid. And indeed, a raid was executed and much items were found.
Thank you, Minister Richardson, and thank you, Lyndon, for the question. I would now like to invite Stephen Cerulean of PJDC Radio. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Rich. Prime Minister, good morning. Ministers, good morning to you as well. I'm sure this subject is going to come up once again, Prime Minister. My question is directed at you. For some time now, there has been talks about the formation of a united Congress between French and Dutch. Can you tell us if those conversations are still happening, and if yes, how far ahead are you in that the United Congress, as has been talked about, will be realized?
Thank you for that question, Stephen. Indeed, the discussions are ongoing on the technical levels. As Minister Justice stated just now, and we're coming up on St. Martin Day again, and then people like, oh yeah, the speeches. However, collaboration, excuse me, is an ongoing thing between Dutch and French St. Martin. We have now instituted more meetings between, let's say, the Prefet and myself. There are certain authorities that lie with the Prefet, others with the collectivité. We have a good relationship with the collectivité already. That platform that you're mentioning was one that was proposed on a collectivité level, but based on the fact that so many of the authorities that we have, I have to deal with the Prefet about, it requires a broader discussion. But we are moving forward with it. I will be able to get an update from the technical staff of Kingdom and Foreign Affairs, Kingdom Relations Department within General Affairs, as well as Foreign Affairs Department, who are the ones speaking with the technicals on the French side on our behalf at this time. So I haven't received the finalized, let's call it, document as yet. We haven't, but we continue to have discussions as needed, even without that document, on areas of collaboration and cooperation. Of course, as two EU-connected countries, anything that is EU-funded sometimes also comes with a collaborative opportunity, which we, as a small island nation that is only 16 square miles, and the gale doesn't stop at the border, we seek every and all opportunities to collaborate with our northern counterparts. So that continues to be something that we are actively working on. So at this point, it's still at the technical level.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs, and thank you, Stephen, for the question. I would now like to invite Andrew Bishop of St. Martin News. You have the floor.
Thank you, Laika. Good morning to the ministers. I have a few questions I would like to ask. First being is that there are a number of slot machines in bars. Especially there's one right now on the L.B. Scott Road. Is this a new phenomena? Does these people have any license to have slot machines in their bars?
Mr. Bishop, who did you direct the question to?
I'm directing the question to the Prime Minister, saying that the Minister of Theatre is not here.
I'll take the question. Indeed, this has been a discussion in terms of lottery booths in general and the burgeoning or the mushrooming of them all over the place. We see as government that is something that the Minister of Theatre has just come in. He's been on a recent travel and again is traveling, necessary travel, however, but it does have his attention. And this was discussed, not necessarily the one in a bar, but this will be brought and added to the discussion. He is awaiting a report from his inspection and from his departments, relevant departments within the Ministry of TEAT on the overview, what they're operating under, because as ministry, as government, we are also questioning that. And if we can go back in history, you will see that our Minister of Finance, Minister of Romy, whilst in the Parliament, that we questioned the former government on this. We got a tour as Parliament as to the different measurements and scales, and we're given some information on the lottery booths. And it is one of the goals of this government to ensure that they are all properly regulated. And for me, on a personal note, if they're not necessary, they don't need to be in certain areas, because I'm noticing also that they are mainly in areas where the most neediest persons are. And we might have a policy as to them visiting casinos, but what is controlling that? It's having a negative effect on our population. And there has been a research done by the General Audit Chamber, and the Minister of Finance is also following up strongly on this to ensure that the compliance, et cetera, is there, and that we can diminish the negative effect on the community. That has our attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs, and thank you, Andrew, for the question. We now move on to the second and final round of questions. Bibi Hadshaw, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relaika. I'm going to ask this question to the Minister of VSR, but Prime Minister, I'd also like for you to give a comment on this, because you spoke about the extra monies that we are going to have, that we are going to have with the food programs. Minister Otley, recently, and I think this has been going on for months, but we have not been paying much attention to this, with the soaring food prices, the skyrocketing food prices due to the shipping situation. What do you have in place for, let's say, adjusting minimum wage? So minimum wage earners can at least live. Is there anything in place to at least help people that are unemployed and are depending on social income? Can you give?
Thank you, Ms. Haisha. Definitely. Last week in CoM, we were presented an entire presentation by the Ministry of TEAT discussing food pricing and collectively what we are going to do to curb this increase. It's something that is happening all over the world, but definitely not because it's happening all over the world, it is acceptable. So we as a government are teaming up collectively to try to see what can be done to curb this drastic increase. As for me as Minister of VSI, I have also already signed the advice and sent it to the SER for their advice to allow possible one-time indexation for the years that we have missed. And once that advice is brought back to me, I will act accordingly. But for those that are listening, the advice that was sent to the SER with the indexation is for the ability for me to raise minimum wage. So I have started the process, so I'm just waiting on the advice to return back to my cabinet, and then me, by extension, the government would then carry out the course of action needed. So that's my answer as far as minimum wage. It's in the pipeline, and we have done what we can do, so we're now waiting on the advisory body to advise us on their opinion.
Thank you, Minister Otley. Prime Minister Jacobs.
Yes, thank you for the question, Ms. Shaw. To dovetail on what Minister Otley has already expressed, the meeting on the prices was actually a follow-up meeting. So we'd had one prior. Several questions were asked from the ministers that was answered by the departments, the relevant departments within TEAT. Several recommendations have been made, which we will have to decide on the best way forward. They are, of course, looking at best practices around the world, but also taking into consideration our small islandness and the need for import. So we're looking at a multi-pronged approach besides just looking at wages. We do know that there's been many complaints about the minimum wage and about just wages for a large section of the population, including within government. And that has been one of the things that I've been questioning our own personnel office to department to come with some solutions towards that. What was needed was some research, was some information. So prior to the law that the policy, that policy that went to the SER was asked via my office for a cost of living assessment to be done. And based on what I was updated last week, that was supposed to be handled in the meeting of the SER. They usually meet on the Tuesdays, but I didn't get an update yet as to what was the result of that meeting. So the report is finalized. I haven't received it yet. It has to be decided by the board. So the secretariat, I think I explained a bit on how our high councils and advisory councils work. The secretariat does the research and they present it to the board for decision making. And once that decision is finalized, it is then shared with the Council of Ministers, with government and other stakeholders. So I'm still looking forward to that. That will play a role as well, also with some of the reforms that are in the pipeline. So it's a multi-pronged approach. And I know I'm very happy for that question because a lot of what is being done, I'm hearing a lot of complaints here and there about what government is or isn't doing. But based on the backlog of updates needed in policy and legislation to be able to carry out your will so that it's not a one-off because you are there as a sitting government, that is what is taking up a lot of government at the moment. And it requires a lot of hard work from the civil servants and from our external partners like the SER, like the Raad van Advies, etc., and the General Audit Chamber especially. So we are dealing with the individual complaints, but really and truly as a government, we want to focus on making the larger impact by making the structural changes that are necessary that will impact the larger community, if you can understand what I'm saying. So cost of living is a serious issue. And when we have what is the basic cost of living, and we now have from TEAT, what are some of the cost drivers, then we can address that holistically as a government. And that's what we're working towards.
Can I have a follow-up on this very important issue?
Unfortunately, given our time and the extensive media presence we have, I'm not allowed to allow it. I'm sorry. I would now like to invite Ralph Kantav. You have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. My question is for the Minister of VSA. And to the point, it's basically when can the public expect the rollout of the booster shots?
Thank you, Mr. Kantab. We're in the process of analyzing this. We have had meetings with our stakeholders, like as far as the White and Yellow Cross, the pharmacies, the hospitals, because when the booster is to be rolled out, we will start with the most vulnerable groups. So hence the reason that those stakeholders were involved. There was a list given to us of about 400 plus persons that would qualify based on the group that we would start with. So we are in the process, so that can be expected very shortly, within short.
Thank you, Minister Otley, and thank you, Ralph, for the question. Lyndon Brown, you have the floor.
Question to Minister Otley. Minister Otley, recently you mentioned the race to normalcy. Over the past months, business owners, people who have restaurant, late night restaurant, they have been complaining of all of these conditions you have put in place, and what they're saying, it did not work for them. Are you seeing the race to normalcy has a short time to be in place, ministers? And also, recently you and the Prime Minister emphasized on herbal local medicine, what our old people used to use. Is there any alternative medicine that you can use to combat the virus? So I hope you can, between you and the Prime Minister, you can elaborate on this statement, question.
Thank you. First of all, you made a statement. You said that nightlife owners and restaurants owners are complaining about the measures that we put in place, stating that it didn't work for them. I don't know what measures you're talking about because we recently did a extension until 1 a.m. The measures are to be put in place. The only measures that we have put in place was scaling back of nightlife, was zero tolerance, not only for nightlife, but daytime inspections, in which when we signed the MR with Justice, Minister of VSA, Ministry of TEAT, to combat daytime activities, I must note that we went from 349 cases down to 157 in 2 weeks. 2 weeks after that, we are now at 47 cases. So at the end of the day, some of the decisions that I or we may make may upset everyone, but I've always said it, at the end of the day, once you can sit and say, I understand why he did what he did, I can live with it. No one will be able to satisfy everyone. And yes, there will be instruments in place to ensure a safe reopening. The plan indeed is to advertise, according to TEAT, to the public at large that St. Martin is open for the fully vaccinated. There will be discussions with the CoM and the stakeholders about another extension as of November 1st. Yes, the economy has to survive. Every day, every week, we hear the Prime Minister, we hear the Minister of Finance come here and say there's new stipulations, there's new requirements. The money that we receive from the Netherlands is not a grant, it's a loan. At the end of the day, I am also Minister of Labor. And we can do all we can for the public health aspect. Now it's my time and my turn to take care of the labor aspect. So St. Martin needs to reopen. St. Martin will reopen. And the plan is to reopen in a manner that I pray we don't have to shut down or scale back ever again. So if that takes you people being upset with me for putting stuff in place, so be it. At the end of the day, I can see the bigger picture. We have an amazing season. We have 5 new flights coming here. We have Air France promising to land 10 times a week. We have 5 new cruise line vessels that are promised to come to St. Martin for the season. So guess what? I see the bigger picture. So if somebody's upset with me for measures that I put in place for a slow season to secure a promising busy season, that's the risk that I'm willing to take. I just wanted to share that information with the media. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Otley. Prime Minister Jacobs, did you have anything to add?
I think the minister said it all, and I can just, let's say, add my approval to that message 100%. We have done everything. It is now up to the people of St. Martin, and people need to work to be able to take care of their families. The aid is done. We are not even able to right now utilize the funds that have been left over, and we are told, ask for it in liquidity support. We want to get off of the liquidity support train. We want to support ourselves, so St. Martin has to get back on track.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs, and thank you, Minister Otley. Lyndon, thank you for the question as well. Stephen Cerulean, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. From an entertainment point of view, my question is for the Prime Minister, responsible for the Festival Village, if I'm not mistaken. The Carnival Development Foundation, Prime Minister, has expressed their desire to run in the daily affairs of the Carnival Village. In fact, they strongly believe that they can do a better job at that. Have you been in any sort of discussion with this organization in terms of the running of the daily affairs of the Festival Village?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Cerulean. No, we are not as government, or I can say no, I have not had those discussions. I don't know if they've had them with others within government, but no, the Festival Village is not, let's say, up for grabs for other entities to run at this time. The Stichting Overheidsgebouwen, SOG, currently still has that. We are getting updates. We've received financial statements. Right now, the Carnival Development Foundation is still in the process of finalizing what it has to do to be compliant, to be receiving the subsidies it has been receiving, and as a government, we are assessing all of that. But that conversation has not been had, no.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs, and thank you, Stephen, for the question. Andrew Bishop, you have the floor.
Thank you, Laika. The question is for the Prime Minister. I first must congratulate you on the movement at the airport that we've started. But is there any priorities for like the U.S. pre-clearance at the airport, and how soon could we see that happening?
Thank you for the question, and I accept your congratulations on behalf of the people of St. Martin, because that airport is not about congratulating me, but the people of St. Martin. All of us will benefit when that is back to full force and much improved as well. What I can say about pre-clearance is that it is a part of the governing program of this government. We still have it within our pipeline. It requires a lot of, let's call it, paperwork still. The airport itself is slated to be done in 2023, and the trajectory that was started in the past is still a viable one, but it requires a lot of legislative as well as other changes and adaptations to be made. So of course we have to prioritize. And what we have done as a Council of Ministers is establish a committee to pick it back up, to see what needs to be done, etc. So that is the process where we are right now in terms of having an internal committee of government looking at where what has been achieved, what is still to be achieved, because there was a plan in place for that execution already.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Members of the media, this does bring us to the end of the question and answer session. Any further questions can be sent to the Minister's Cabinet in writing. Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, October 20th, 2021. For rebroadcast, tune into St. Martin Gov Radio via 107.9 FM, Telem's Tel TV Plus, the official Facebook page of the Government of St. Martin, the YouTube channel Government of St. Martin, and St. Martin Cable TV channel 115. For video on demand, log on to the Government of St. Martin's YouTube channel. On behalf of the Department of Communication and the Government of St. Martin, I'm Relaika Roach, and wishing you a pleasant day further.